Chapter 832, Town. Before his brain short-circuited, Klein only had time for two thoughts. How powerful, there's no way to resist. I wonder if I can be revived from such a death. As his thoughts resonated, Klein's vision turned pitch black. He lost all his senses as he entered a dreamless slumber. After an unknown period of time, the silent darkness suddenly stirred. He vaguely felt a sense of grogginess as he felt a cold wind blow at him. As his thoughts thawed bit by bit, Klein slowly opened his eyes and saw fog everywhere above him. The crimson moon was hidden in it, occasionally showing itself. Did I just resurrect again? Or have I entered the underworld? Even if it's the latter, that's not too problematic. I might even be able to get the skeleton messenger to contact Mr. Azik. However, I'll have to become an undead creature or spirit world creature. Klein's mind was still a little heavy, as though someone had injected glue into his brain, preventing him from expanding on his thoughts. Slowly, he sensed his body and heard his heart beating. His mind quickly turned lucid, as he believed that the possibility of him resurrecting was higher. Perhaps he had been thrown out into the wilderness. Puh! Klein's joints produced a crack as he jumped to his feet. Without checking his physical condition, he first observed his surroundings and confirmed the type of environment he was in. The first thing he saw was a fog that permeated the area and the dark and stillness of the night. And close by was a tiny town. The most striking building in the town was an extremely ancient spired cathedral. It was completely black in color. There wasn't a bell tower, and at the top of it were pitch-black ravens spiraling around it. Around the cathedral were many buildings. They were normal two-story residences and simple wooden huts. There were bread shops with hanging signboards and grayish-white mills using water wheels for power. However, there wasn't a single pedestrian. They seemed to be asleep in the quietness of the night. As a seer, Klein instantly found the town very familiar, as though he had seen it somewhere in the past. After a brief recall, he remembered what it represented. This was the source of danger of the nighttime in the ruins of the Battle of Gods. After entering the easternmost region of the Sanya Sea, if one didn't sleep and enter a dream world when night fell, it would be discovered that the person would have gone missing once it was daytime. Klein had once been jolted awake in a dream with the Saint of Darkness, and he saw in the distance a place which was enshrouded in the tranquility of the night. There was a mysterious and bizarre foggy town. He even suspected that all the living beings that vanished at night in the ruins had entered the town. Now he was there himself. He was less than 100 meters from the foggy town. It's related to the night. The target vanishes like it was erased. The power of that high-ranking member of the church doesn't directly kill her enemies, and she instead sends them here. Do the living beings that vanish at night in the ruins also encounter such situations? But it's said that there's no way to obtain their whereabouts via divination. The only interpretation they can conclude is that they might still be alive. Of course, it's also possible that I can be resurrected, thus appearing here. Amidst his thoughts, Klein retracted his gaze and used his ability as a clown to observe his physical condition. He had already changed back into Klein Moretti, but he was still wearing the keeper's black clergyman robe. He didn't have any signs of an injury on him. Filled with experience, Klein quickly calmed down. His right hand reached into his pocket and opened the iron cigar case. He took out the folded human-skinned glove and wore it on his left hand. After confirming that creeping hunger could still be used, Klein lifted Azik's copper whistle and blew into it. However, the skeleton messenger didn't appear in the spirit vision he quickly activated. Klein wasn't too surprised with such an outcome. Instead, he found it normal. After all, the people who had vanished on the eastern front of the Sanya Sea had yet to be found. After all, over the years, there was likely no lack of beyonders here who could summon messengers, such as the members of the numinous episcopate. This place is directly isolated from the spirit world. From the looks of it, traveling can't be used. As expected of a high-ranking member, the church sent to deal with the great smog of Backland. She sends her targets here as a form of eternal exile or imprisonment. It's impossible to use ordinary or simple means to contact the outside world. To escape from this place, even saints will find it difficult. Klein didn't lose himself to anxiety, as he still felt confident. He placed Azek's copper whistle back into the iron cigar case and prepared to take 4 steps counterclockwise. He wanted to head above the gray fog to escape the imprisonment of the fog town. The immortal Lord of heaven and earth for blessings. The sky Lord of heaven and earth for blessings. The exalted Theurge of heaven and earth for blessings. The celestial worthy of heaven and earth for blessings. With 1 sentence per step, Klein rapidly completed the ritual. However, he didn't hear the familiar, frenzied ravings, nor did he see the endless emanating grayish-white fog. Klein's pupils constricted as he fell into a momentarily daze. This place was isolated from the mysterious space above the gray fog. This made his greatest trump card unusable. Klein had relied on the area above the gray fog to escape danger many times in the past, but this time, this solution was ineffective. This was the first time he was encountering such a situation. Man, it feels as though my cheat has been blocked. Klein lampooned to relax his tense emotions. Based on his knowledge of mysticism, he suspected that the foggy town was likely related to a true deity, because this was the only explanation as to why he couldn't head above the gray fog. This place has close ties to the night. I was sent here after encountering a high-ranking member. Could it be a prison that the goddess created herself? But she is the mother of concealment. Perhaps she can directly make people or items enter a concealed state, making people in the real world never able to find them again. Klein seriously contemplated and decisively decided to explore the foggy town. This was because the method to leave this place was most likely to be there. At this point, he was no longer worried about not being able to convene the Tarot Club. Of course, there was no need for him to worry about it for now. He had canceled the coming tarot gathering ahead of time because the operation of stealing the Antigonus family's notebook was fraught with danger and variables. Klein suspected that he might end up dead and be unable to resurrect in time. Therefore, he used a reasonable excuse to get everyone to make additional preparations for a week. After making up his mind, Klein immediately got the wraith inside him to float beside him. The marionette's condition was already in a terrible state. The dead and cold aura was something substantial, making his control of the spirit-body threads somewhat rough. Thankfully, I can still use him for a few more days. Also, Mr. A was erased by that high-ranking church member. He might be living nearby. I have to be careful about this person who's equivalent to a lunatic. Klein transformed into Jayaman Sparrow as he made Senner walk ahead and enter the foggy town. Following the Mariontist principle he had concluded, he stood in the back with a distance of at least 110 meters between them. Over time, his digestion had increased his control over his marionette to 120 meters. There was also a reduction in the time needed to gain initial control of spirit body threads and completely change someone into a marionette. Faced with an enemy whose spirit body was equally strong, the former took 16 seconds and the latter took 4 minutes. In the silent, foggy world, Senner, in his dark red coat and old triangular hat, didn't take long to enter the bizarre and mysterious town. Many of the building doors were still open as though they were welcoming guests from afar. With his marionette's vision, Klein saw that there was a half-chewed loaf of white bread on the table. There were wine glasses for red wine and messy silver cutlery. It looked like someone had been enjoying dinner, but there was no one present. The owners of these different houses seemed to have suddenly vanished into thin air. Vanished. This term suddenly surfaced in Klein's mind as he hurriedly made Senner cast his gaze towards the grayish-white mill. Inside the mill, the wind-powered mill was rotating silently, but other than the floor that was scattered with flour, no flour came out again. This scene feels familiar. I seem to have heard of it before. Klein frowned bit by bit. As he relied on his marionette, he continued surveying his environment while carefully recalling the similar situation. Just as he was considering using dream divination to question his spirituality, he found the corresponding answer. A similar scene had appeared in the ancient ruins that appeared at the main peak of the Hornisus mountain range. Based on the literature, the buildings there had every arrangement and decoration well preserved. Even the wall murals didn't have any signs of damage. The table was arranged with cutlery, and there were dried stains of rot on the dining plates. In some rooms, there were half-filled bottles of alcohol that had almost turned into plain water. The discoverer mentioned that, when he first discovered the remains, he even had the belief that the people residing there had just vanished all of a sudden. There's some relation between this foggy town and the main peak of the Hornices mountain range. No way, after trying to avoid it, I ended up coming to it. Klein's facial features twitched involuntarily. For a moment, he couldn't believe what was on his mind. Of course, the scene was just similar, and wasn't enough to make him come up with such a conclusion. After taking a deep breath and slowly exhaling, Klein forced himself to calm down. He controlled Wraith Center and made him venture deeper into the foggy town. At that moment, he heard light footsteps. Klein's heart tensed up as he hurriedly hid inside the mill and made his marionette stop. In just a few seconds, Wraith Center saw a woman walk out from a nearby alley. She wore a pure white robe, and her hair was pulled back, revealing her long, white neck. She looked extremely beautiful.